Oh, hooray. It's time for another visit to our favorite website, Everyday Feminism. Yeah, the site where the soul-crushing, misery-inducing, truth-destroying philosophy of feminism is not just for those days when you're tired of living a happy life, but for every day, every single day. Oh, hooray. Today on Everyday Feminism, we find a post entitled, and I'm not making this up, that's the beauty of everyday feminism. I never have to make anything up. The post is entitled, Beware These 10 Types of Feminist Men. This post begins, quote, "Never is a man so potentially dangerous to a female-read person as when he claims to be a feminist," unquote. Now, already some of you may be asking yourself, what does a female-read person mean? Why can't they just speak English? And of course, the answer is that English is a language and is therefore used to describe things that exist in the real world and so has no place in feminism. Anyway, back to the post. Beware of something, I hate you, something, something. Anyway, here are some selections of evil men women have to be afraid of this month. Beware male feminists who seek to control your sexuality. These are feminist men who, quote, learn words like liberation and body positive and sexual agency and use them to guilt you into sex, unquote. Feminists, here's a friendly pro tip. The category of feminist men just pretending to be feminist in order to get sex includes approximately 100% of feminist men. But according to Everyday Feminism, you should also beware male feminists who believe they have a right to your appearance. These are men who, quote, don't like your red lipstick because it's not feminist, or question how you use mascara or eyelashes or a razor on your legs, unquote. You might also want to beware those men who actually demonstrate to you how to use lipstick and mascara, especially if they then have conversations with themselves while pretending to be their own mothers. Another horrific sort of man for you to be afraid of are male feminists who set up womanhood as a competition. These are men who tell you you're so much more clever, more mature, or more enlightened than other girls they've dated. If you're reading this article and taking it seriously, trust me, you're not that clever, and these men are lying to you. Or maybe they've just never dated anyone else, because they're feminist men. One more, and so help me, I'm still not making this up. Beware male feminists who invalidate your queer identity. These are men who demand to be present in your queer spaces. Obviously, this is so they can watch as two smoking hot babes indulge in hot lesbian action for their entertainment. If you are dating one of these men, it's possible you're actually a porn site. The article goes on, but really I could have saved Everyday Feminism a lot of trouble. Women should beware all men who say they're feminists because they're either lying to get into your pants or they're idiots who believe the nonsense you've been spouting. And let's face it, even you aren't stupid enough to believe that. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. It's like everyday feminism was where I go when I'm just lazy. I'm too lazy to write my own opening. All right, we're back. We're on the brink. This is it. These weeks go by so fast. We are on the brink of the Klavanless Weekend. So we have to cling to every moment of Klavan-y goodness that we can and strengthen our minds and gird our loins, whatever gird and loins mean. Whatever it is, we're going to do it today. We're on Facebook for 15 minutes and YouTube. What happens? Do they cut off on YouTube too? You can't say, oh, so after 15 minutes, you got to come to the Daily Wire. You can download us on iTunes or SoundCloud. And then you can subscribe and see the entire show. Yesterday, we had a great mailbag. I answered a couple of terrific questions. The answers were just incredibly incisive and brilliant and opened up whole new worlds of understanding to our listeners. But you can't be in it if you don't subscribe. So unclasp your lousy hands off your lousy $8 and send us some money so we can do our jobs. All right, I'm going to talk about this election in the context of what's actually happening in the world, because I started to do this yesterday, but the mailbag does take up a certain amount of time, and I wanted to get into more detail and I want to talk about the ways in which the world is so falsely represented, even when by the fact that we're talking about the election. Dana Perino, who co-hosts The Five on Fox, was on some other Fox show yesterday. And she, of course, used to be George W. Bush's press secretary and has a lot of experience in how the media work. And she said the media will follow process, before it follows substance, which is technical language, meaning basically they'll talk about what's going on in the election, the sort of meta story of the election, before they'll talk about what these two people represent and what they might do as president. And so they'll talk about gaffes. I mean, I love gaffes. Gaffes are so absurd because if you are on TV 24/7, as these people are, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to say things that can be taken out of context. And it's all about what you take out of context and how big a deal you make out of it and who you can find to go on air. All of that stuff matters not at all compared to the fact that people are going to get into office and do certain things, and they are certain people. And so yesterday there was this big shakeup. Of course, Steve Bannon from the Breitbart sites took over Trump's campaign. And this made a lot of news, and we were especially interested in it here because Shapiro has been virtually at war with Bannon. Dana Lash and Glenn Beck also came out talking about what a terrible guy he is and how he's taken this Breitbart site, and I'm not bragging when I say I was friends with Andrew Breitbart. We were all friends with Andrew Breitbart. He was kind of the hub that all brought us together. I mean, you can't really find two conservatives, especially in L.A., who didn't in some way meet each other through Andrew. And he was this incredible generosity. He had this incredibly expansive personality, and he would bring us all together. And I remember when Andrew tragically died very young, I was sitting in an airport at like 3 a.m. when I got the news. I was actually flying to New York to do Glenn Beck's show. And I was sitting there in the airport lounge, and I got the news. And I remember the first words that went through my mind were, "Oh no, maybe God is not on our side," because I thought we've really lost this central guy. And since then, Bannon has come in and he's taken the Breitbart sites and he has turned them into what is now called the Trump-Bart sites. They're Trump's Pravda, basically. They just sell this stuff. A lot of anti-Semitism on there, a lot of this alt-right garbage that comes out. And nobody speaks for Andrew. Andrew is gone. We can't know what he would have made of Trump. I suspect he would have been entertained by Trump, but also hated him as the bully that he sometimes is. He hated bullies. But the point is that these Breitbart sites are no longer Breitbart sites. And every time I hear Andrew's name being used, this Breitbart said this, it is painful. And Bannon did that. So now Bannon is coming into this election. And what does it mean? It means, I think, that Trump will be more Trump. Obviously, Paul Manafort, the guy he is replacing, though they say he's not, but he obviously is, Manafort was trying to build Trump into a presentable candidate. And I think that wasn't working because Trump can only be who he is. And Trump himself has said, he says, everyone talks about, oh, you've got to pivot. He said this on Wisconsin TV Tuesday. He says, I don't want to pivot. I don't want to change. You have to be you. If you start pivoting, you're not being honest with people. And I think he's making a perfectly good point. I think Donald Trump should be Donald Trump. You asked for him, you got him. So let him be who he is. And he's not finished yet. The polls look very, very bad for him. Although there was one guy on TV, I loved this yesterday. Hillary is being very soundly telling her voters not to stop fighting. Obama is saying this too. This election could turn around, and I'll get back to why in a minute. And so Hillary is out there. She made a speech just a day ago where she told people, don't get complacent.
So don't be complacent, my friends, because even though we're doing fine right now, I'm not taking anybody anywhere for granted. We're going to work hard these next 85 days, and I can't do it without your help.
Okay, so she's not complacent, but on the Trump side, where all the polls say she's bad, Michael Cohen, a Trump spokesman, goes on CNN yesterday, and the news lady asks this question.
You guys are down, and it makes
Says
sense
who?
that there would...
Says
polls,
who?
most of them. All of them?
Says who?
Polls. I just told you. I answered your question.
Okay. Which polls?
All of them.
Okay. And your question is?
That's the Trump camp. They're just like planted right in the center of reality, So Trump is going to be more Trump, and that means he's going to be more belligerent, and he's going to be more bullying, more nicknames, more shooting at the hip. And Putin is a great guy, and wouldn't it be great if we could work together with Putin? Because we're working together with him pretty well right now. So this has created this surreal situation, which I've talked about. I talked about this during the primaries, that this was going to happen, in which the media, which has now gone completely insane, is going to be attacking Trump and totally lying about him, while at the same time totally telling the truth. I mean, it really is surreal. Ann Coulter wrote this column last week where she said that Trump is being media raped, and always, restrained in her language, and, always speaking. Let me just read you a piece of this because it really is good. She's always a wonderful writer. And Ann has been on the Trump train from way before anyone else. I mean, she said he was going to be the next president a year before the primary started. Even having predicted that the media's attacks on Trump would be unprecedented, I'm still amazed. Every single news outlet is dedicated to hysterically denouncing Trump every minute of every day while cooing at Hillary. Everything Hillary has ever touched has failed, been engulfed in scandal, resulted in massive investigations, litigation, financial ruin, prison, or death. The final stage of any Hillary enterprise is a grand announcement that Hillary did not technically break the law. That's the triumph of Hillary, that she did not technically break the law, or no one can prove she did, or even if she did, no one ever gets prosecuted for it. She's prone to coughing fits and lapses of memory in the middle of speeches. She falls down all the time. But that's not nearly as important as the media's manufactured story about Trump throwing a baby out of a rally. Trump is supposed to be joined at the hip to David Duke based on not disavowing him with sufficient ferocity the 17th time he was asked about this person he's never met, never mentioned, and didn't invite to speak at his convention. Hillary invited the mother of violent cop-hating criminal Mike Brown to speak at her convention, and the Democratic platform expressly endorses the anti-police Black Lives Matter, even as these celebrated cop-haters inspire the mass slaughter of police officers across the country, in New York City, Dallas, and Baton Rouge. All of this is true. I mean, this thing is true, that Trump gets up and he gives this speech in which he says maybe Second Amendment people can do something about Hillary Clinton, and it's interpreted, I think, perfectly reasonable as a joke about assassinating Hillary Clinton, which it obviously was. It's a joke you shouldn't make if you're a responsible person. There are crazy people out there. They do have guns. They will kill people. You don't make that joke. But on stage at the Democrat convention, there are these cop haters whose children were thugs, whose children were criminal, being lauded as the mothers of the movement, as if these are important people because they've got to kowtow to the Black Lives Matter people before doing absolutely nothing for them, before continuing to destroy their cities, continuing to destroy their lives, their jobs. So you've got this bizarre situation where Trump he is a character. He didn't disavow David Duke. That was an ugly moment. His supporters these alt-right supporters are flaming anti-Semites. Believe me, I get their tweets. I get their messages. I know what they're saying. These are horrible, hateful people. He goes out of his way to wink and nod at them. That's a terrible thing to do. Remember, if he wants to be president, he's going to be president of all the people, even the evil Jews who are, some of the best and most productive people in the country. But, he's going to have to be president of everybody and all these hate groups that he doesn't turn away because he knows they're some of his core support. So he is doing these awful things. But reality is campaigning against Hillary Clinton. Reality is campaigning against Hillary Clinton. Everything, what Ann says is true. Everything she's touched has turned to crap. And everything Obama has done, I mean, this is the weird situation we're in, where Barack Obama, who is loved, I mean, he has really high approval ratings, he has screwed up everything. We talked yesterday a little bit about the fact that the Russians are flying missions into Syria out of Iran. And just putting those words together should make, newsmen who read that, Russians are flying raids against Aleppo out of Iran, their heads should just then explode. That should be the next thing that happens on a news report. A guy should say, the Russians have been flying raids into Syria out of Iran. It should just be like this flame. But it all goes by the boards because we're talking about Steve Bannon. We're talking about him. Look, what has he got to do with the fact that Obama's deal with Iran that was supposed to bring them into line with us has brought them into line with one of our worst enemies and one of humanity's worst enemies, the Russians, who have been stepping on the human throat for a century now, and if not more, and are now in league with the worst terrorist state in the world, the biggest supporter of terrorism. And the Arabs, because remember, folks, just like everywhere else, most of these people just want to live their lives. Most people, they want to sell their goods, make their money, raise their kids. That's almost what everybody wants to do, except for the people who have the energy and the evil to get involved in politics and try to run other people. So all these Arabs, they're helpless. They're absolutely unarmed because we're not there. The only defense that good people in the Middle East ever had is Israel and us, and we aren't there. And so Iran and Russia are going to take over that area because of Obama's recklessness and stupidity and his one-sidedness. Oh my goodness, already we've run out of time for Facebook, but we're going to continue talking about this and talk about comedy and the way that the left dominates the entertainment industry. Come on over to the Daily Wire.